It started with a compliment. "She's so beautiful when she doesn't even try." Then came the attention. "I don't know what it is about her, but there's just something." And then came the whisper. "Maybe it's not natural, maybe it's charm." But it wasn't charm, it wasn't pride. Her name was Doris, and she didn't ask for admiration. She didn't wear expensive clothes. She didn't fix lashes. But somehow, when she entered a room, people paused. And next to her stood her best friend, Esther. Fair, flawless, polished, and ignored. This is not just a story of friendship. It's the story of envy in disguise, of beauty turned curse, and left her face unrecognizable. Because behind that flawless skin, behind that innocent mirror reflection, was something that wanted out, and the one who gifted it never imagined what it would cost. Welcome to African Tales by Imadai. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and hit subscribe for more spine-chilling stories. Doris and Esther had been best friends since their first day at St. Andrew's Girls' Secondary School. They lived in the same dorm, slept on adjacent bunks, shared Gary, biscuits, and sometimes tears. Esther was the rich one, the one with imported perfumes and custom uniforms. Her cream always smelled like roses. Her skin glowed like afternoon sun on polished tiles. Fair-skinned, busty, and always looking like she stepped out of a boutique. She believed in beauty, and she believed she had it. Until people started looking at Doris. One Monday morning, Esther was done dressing first. She wore a short, fitted, dark green gown with pleats, gold accessories, and her signature clear lip gloss. She looked expensive. "Doris, hurry now," she said, adjusting her hair. Doris smiled, pulling her socks up and buttoning her plain white shirt. Her uniform wasn't tailored. Her shoes weren't new. But when they walked out of the room, it happened again. The gate man greeted only Doris. "Ah, fine girl. You're always making me smile every morning I see you." The cook gave her an extra piece of fried yam. The senior prefect winked. And as they walked past the assembly ground, someone whispered, "That's the one they call Sunshine." Esther heard it. Her throat tightened, but she smiled. Over the next few weeks, the pattern continued. Doris didn't change. She still wore her natural hair in neat cornrows, still used Vaseline instead of setting spray, still laughed like nothing in the world could touch her. But Esther began to notice the way people looked at her friend. Boys from the neighboring boys' school waited outside her class. A junior student once knelt down and tied her shoelace. Teachers asked her to lead prayers and presentations. Esther tried to ignore it, tried to act like it didn't matter. But one day in chapel, the chaplain asked, "Who among us radiates inner beauty?" Without hesitation, 4 girls shouted, "Doris!" Even the chaplain chuckled. Esther's face burned. That night, she lay on her bunk, staring at the ceiling fan as it rotated slowly. "She doesn't even wear powder," she muttered. "She doesn't even try." Then came the day of the inter-school quiz competition. Both girls were chosen to represent their school. Doris for literature, Esther for current affairs. Doris wore a simple gown with flat slippers. Esther came in heels with a full face of foundation and a high bun wrapped in a silk scarf. When they entered the hall, a judge leaned over to the principal and said, "That dark girl, she has presence like royalty." Esther heard it. When the competition ended and Doris won Best Presentation, the applause was thunderous. Esther didn't clap. She just smiled and hugged Doris. But inside, she wasn't hugging her friend. She was hugging her frustration. That week, Doris was called to the school office. An NGO had seen her perform at the competition. They wanted to feature her in a leadership spotlight. They wanted to sponsor her studies. They wanted her to travel. Esther smiled. She hugged her. "God is lifting you," she said. "Your star is too bright," she added. But the moment Doris left the office, Esther didn't go back to the hostel. She took a long walk, through the back gate, through the bush path behind the kitchen block, to a street no one used anymore. She didn't know where she was going. She just walked until she arrived at a compound painted black with white chalk drawings on the walls. A rusty bell hung by the door. She rang it. A woman opened. She wore all black, her eyes lined with coal, and her fingers painted with herbs. She looked Esther over and said, "Who do you want to shine now?" Esther pulled out a picture. It was a selfie of her and Doris, both smiling, but only one was glowing. "I want her to be the one people run from," the woman smiled. "It will take one gift." "I know what to give her," Esther said. "Good, then let me give you what to put in it." She handed her a tiny black bottle and a whispered chant. Esther didn't return straight to the hostel after meeting the native woman. She stopped at the school's kiosk and bought a new makeup bag. Leather-bound, sleek, red zip. It looked expensive, like it belonged to someone who flew first class. She slipped the black bottle into it, along with freshly bought foundation, lip gloss, highlighter, and an enchanted compact powder the woman had prepared. Then she walked back to the hostel and waited. Not for a voice, not for guilt, just for the perfect time. And that time came 3 nights later. The evening after Doris was given another school award for Most Admired Personality. That night, Esther knocked gently on Doris's door. "I brought you something," she said. Doris looked up from her bed, surprised. "What's the occasion?" "You keep glowing, so I just wanted to celebrate you." She handed her the makeup bag. Doris held it like it was gold. "Esther, this is too much. You know I don't even wear makeup. You don't have to use it now, but when you do, I want you to think of me." And then she left. The makeup bag sat on Doris's locker for months. She didn't touch it, didn't unzip it. She even placed her Bible on top of it. At first, it was a kind gesture. She didn't want to offend Esther. But deep down, something about it made her nervous. There were days she thought she heard the zipper twitch. Days she dreamed of black powder and shadows brushing across her cheeks. Days she saw herself in the mirror. Not quite herself, but the dreams faded, and eventually so did the school term. After graduation, Esther and Doris both got admitted into the same university, Eastern Hill University, a prestigious campus nestled between modern plazas and ancient forests. Their hostel was off campus, 2 streets away from the school gate. They shared a room, again. But this time, life was different. They weren't little girls anymore. Their wardrobes changed. No more uniforms, no more flat shoes. It was now Ankara mini flares, fitted blouses, backless tops, round necks that hugged their chests, and high-waist skirts that curved over their hips. Doris embraced the change, but still stayed simple. She wore her cornrows tighter now, her curves more obvious, but her face still had no paint. And yet, she still stole the attention. At the faculty orientation, a guest lecturer came to speak. When he stepped off stage, he shook hands with a few girls, then paused at Doris. "You look like the daughter of a queen," he said. "Have you ever modeled before?" Esther was right beside her. At the hostel gate, security guards rushed to help Doris carry her bag. Not Esther's. At the cafeteria, a stranger paid for her food. At the fellowship, the lead pastor's son stopped to ask, "Sorry, are you a final year student? You carry yourself like a woman of vision." And one night at the hostel, Esther caught their neighbor, a stylish, dreadlocked 400-level boy, standing by the corridor, waiting. When Doris stepped out to buy airtime, he smiled. "I was just hoping I'd see you." Esther was inside, watching through the window, her hands curled into fists. Esther didn't say anything, not to Doris, not to herself. But at night, while Doris slept, she stared at the makeup bag. It still sat on the same shelf, untouched. "She doesn't even know what's inside," Esther muttered. "And yet people still see her." One evening, they were dressing for a cultural event on campus. They both wore brightly patterned Ankara mini flare skirts and matching tops. Doris tied hers off shoulder. Her hips swayed naturally as she walked. Esther's dress sparkled. Sequins, glitter, body oil. Yet no one noticed. Even the photographer said, "Sis, I beg let your friend stand in the middle. She's the main character." Esther turned, walked straight to their room. She shut the door behind her. Her chest rose and fell. And then she unzipped the makeup bag. When Doris returned later that night, Esther was sitting on her bed. Babe, why don't you ever use the makeup I got you? Doris hesitated. I don't know. I'm not used to those things. But you're in university now. You can't keep being the same church girl. She smiled softly. Just once. Try it once tomorrow. Doris laughed. I'll think about it. No thinking. Just once. Esther picked up the powder compact and handed it to her. This one matches your skin perfectly. Doris took it. Okay, tomorrow. Esther turned off the light, but in the darkness she was wide awake, smiling. The next morning felt different. The sky was unusually gray. Even the sun seemed to be hiding behind something unseen. The air smelled like burnt wood, though nothing was burning. Doris woke up late. Her class was at 10 a.m. It was already 9:08. Esther stood at the mirror, applying her eyeliner with precision. Omo, time done go, Doris mumbled, dragging herself out of bed. Today's the day, Esther said, turning with a smile. You promised. Doris hesitated. Esther, I don't know. No thinking, Esther said softly. Just sit. Let me help you. Doris sat on the stool. Esther opened the makeup bag like it was a treasure chest. One by one, she brought out the tools. The gold-trimmed foundation brush, the matte powder compact, the shiny gloss that shimmered even in shadows. She dabbed the powder first. Light, circular strokes. This feels cold, Doris said. It's the finishing, Esther replied. This one lasts all day. Next, the foundation. As it touched Doris's skin, she flinched. Are you okay? Esther asked, still smiling. It just tingled a bit. It's normal. Beauty tingles. Then came the gloss. It smelt like honey, but left a metallic aftertaste. Esther stood back. Now look. Doris stood, faced the mirror. She gasped. It was flawless. Not too much, not dramatic. Just enough. Her cheekbones were higher, her lips fuller. Her skin looked like buttered bronze. I can't believe this is me. Esther smiled faintly. They'll believe it. Soon. They stepped out of their hostel. Heads turned, even girls paused. A group of boys at the opposite canteen froze mid-bite. One leaned to whisper to his friend, Who is that? Is that Doris? Can't be. That girl is more beautiful than reality. Doris smiled, half embarrassed, half proud. But as they reached the lecture hall, something strange happened. As they walked past a group of girls, one of them, a short, chubby girl with glasses, stumbled backward and dropped her phone. Jesus, she whispered under her breath. Another girl looked at her with confusion. What is it? Did you see her face just now? Whose face? That Doris girl. Her eyes, didn't you see them? I saw her looking peng. What are you saying? The girl didn't reply. She just picked up her phone and refused to look back again. In the lecture hall, Doris took a seat by the window. Esther sat beside her, still smiling. Midway through the class, Doris raised her phone camera to adjust her hair. The moment the selfie camera opened, she flinched. For half a second, her reflection looked wrong. Her lips were too wide, her eyes slightly too black, and there was a faint spiderweb crack across her left cheek. She blinked. It disappeared. She rubbed her face. It must be the screen. She closed the camera and faced the lecturer, but from the far back of the class, a guy who had been staring at her stood up and walked out, quickly, silently, like something was choking him. That evening, as they prepared for fellowship, Doris stood before the mirror again. Esther, is my face okay? It feels heavy. It's because you're not used to it, Esther said. You're just fine. Doris sighed. She wore a fitted blue Ankara gown with a pleated mini-cut, styled just below her thighs. The patterns danced around her waist and flared around her hips. She looked like a queen, but her eyes, they looked tired. Yet every time she looked at the mirror, it reassured her. You are beautiful. You are finally visible. You are what they want. She smiled at her reflection, then left. But the moment she stepped outside, a small boy on a bicycle, riding with his mother, froze. He screamed, Mummy, that woman has no eyes. His mother turned. Shh, don't say that. The boy began crying. Doris stood, stunned. Esther stepped in quickly. "Come on, let's go. Children are dramatic." But she didn't look back. She didn't need to. She already knew. 2 days later, a blind girl named Tochi came to their fellowship. She was led in by a fellow sister and given a seat near the front. Doris was leading the praise and worship that day. She was radiant. Her voice floated. Her steps were graceful. Her lips moved like silk. People clapped, danced, rejoiced. Except Tochi. She sat very still. That night after fellowship, Doris didn't eat. She sat by the edge of the bed, holding the compact mirror in one hand, staring into it for the 6th time that evening. Her reflection was perfect. Her lips had a natural curve, her brows arched like royalty. The faint shimmer on her cheeks caught the fluorescent light and gave her a soft glow. And yet, "That boy said I had no eyes," she whispered. The child screamed. The blind girl said she saw a shadow. Esther, who was applying nail polish, scoffed without looking up. "You're going to let some random people get into your head?" Doris hesitated. "But what if something's wrong? What if—" Esther snapped the polish bottle shut. "Listen to me." She walked over and stood in front of her. "Have I ever lied to you?" "No." "Do I look scared when I see your face?" "No." Esther leaned in, touched her cheek gently. "Your mirror shows you who you are. It's people that are wicked and jealous. They know your beauty is threatening. They want to make you feel small." Doris nodded slowly, comforted. "You're right," Esther smiled. "Of course I am. Now, go put on your gloss. We're going for chicken and suya tonight." But the following week, things got worse. At the ATM stand, 3 people changed queues after Doris stepped behind them. At fellowship, a woman with twins started praying in tongues and holding her children's eyes when Doris entered. On campus, a guy who once called her Sunshine suddenly blocked her on social media, with no explanation. Still, every time she looked in the mirror, she was stunning. Esther's words rang in her head. "It's jealousy. You're too beautiful for them to handle." And Doris began to believe it. It was a Saturday morning. The sun was calm, the sky bright, the air peaceful. Doris woke up late and didn't feel like doing much. She brushed, showered, but as she reached for the makeup kit, something inside her paused, a gentle nudge. Not today. She didn't know why, but she obeyed. She wore a simple yellow Ankara flare skirt with a tight off-shoulder blouse that hugged her bust perfectly. Her cornrows were neat, her face bare. Esther was already dressed, brows done, cheeks glowing, with a rich red lipstick shade that matched her green Ankara miniskirt. "You're not doing makeup?" she asked, surprised. "No," Doris said. "I just want to feel fresh." Esther frowned, but said nothing. They both stepped out and walked toward the supermarket down the road. Halfway down the road, a black Range Rover slowed beside them. The window rolled down. A deep male voice said, "Hi, ladies. Heading somewhere?" They turned. The man was tall, dark, and dressed in a crisp black caftan with gold embroidery. He wore designer sunglasses and had a Rolex that flashed when the sun hit it. Esther stepped forward, her voice sweet. "Yes, just to the supermarket. Not too far." "Hop in. I'll drop you," he said. Esther quickly slid into the front seat. Doris sat behind. The car began to move. Inside, the man adjusted his rearview mirror. And then he saw her, not Esther, Doris, barefaced, calm, glowing. "You're very beautiful," he said softly, looking at Doris. Esther turned her head slowly. He wasn't even glancing her way. "I like simple elegance," he added. Doris blushed. Esther's fists tightened in her lap. When they got to the supermarket, the man stepped out too. As they walked in, he leaned toward Doris. "Please, can I have your number?" Doris hesitated, then smiled and gave it. Esther stood beside them, frozen. The man barely nodded at her before driving off. His name was Dayor, and he was everything Esther had ever wanted. Wealthy, quietly confident, God-fearing, fine, and intentional. He started calling Doris every day. "Have you eaten? How was class? What's your favorite color? You make me think of things I've never said to anyone." Within weeks, he was sending flowers to their room. He picked her up for lunch. He sent her novels. He prayed with her on the phone at midnight. He told her he had never met anyone like her. Esther was there, watching it all, and yet Doris still wore makeup most days because she believed it made her better. She still didn't know what she had become, but Dayor had fallen for her without it, and that made Esther's stomach turn. A week later, Esther went out alone. She had dressed to kill. A fitted wine-red mini ankara flare with gold hoops, long lashes, and bold foundation. At a cafe, a young man approached her, tall, bearded, smelling like Dior. "I noticed you sitting alone. Can I?" They spoke, laughed, shared numbers. But the moment she got back to the room and Doris mentioned Dayor had called 3 times, Esther's mood flipped. She looked at her phone, at the number the guy gave her, and she deleted it. "I don't want random attention," she whispered. "I want what's hers." Doris stood by the mirror, dabbing lip balm and adjusting the sleeves of her cream-colored mini ankara flare gown. The waist gripped her curves perfectly, and the pleats danced around her thick thighs like they were made to. She wasn't wearing makeup. Again. "Are you seriously going to see Dayor like this?" Esther asked from her bed, applying setting spray. "He likes me this way," Doris replied, brushing her edges. Esther rolled her eyes. "No guy will ever say no to makeup. You think natural face is always enough?" Doris shrugged. "Maybe not for everyone, but it's enough for him." Esther forced a laugh. "If you say so." Outside, Dayor's Lexus honked gently. Doris grabbed her purse and walked out, fresh-faced, confident. Dayor opened the door as she approached. "Wow," he whispered. "What?" Doris asked, laughing shyly. "You just bring peace when I see you." "I don't know how to explain it." He helped her into the car. They drove to a quiet restaurant by the lake. The weather was perfect. The sun didn't glare. The air was crisp. They talked about books, faith, dreams. Doris asked, "Why me?" Dayor replied, "Because you don't have to try. I feel God near you." She didn't tell him about the makeup, or the compliments, or the strange looks she'd been getting. Because with him, she felt seen. And Dayor? He had never been sure of anything in his life. 2 months into the relationship, Dayor called. "Hey babe, I want you to meet my parents." Doris froze on the other end. "Are you serious?" "Very." "When?" "This weekend. I've told them about you. My mum is a bit traditional Shah, so dress well. I always do." "I know, just be yourself." When she dropped the call, she smiled like a girl who had just been handed the key to a kingdom. But Esther, lying on the next bed, had been listening. She sat up. "His parents?" "Yes." "Girl, this is it. You have to slay. Sit down. Let me do your makeup." Doris hesitated. "I wasn't thinking of doing makeup this time." Esther frowned. "You've been going natural every time. This is his mother. Are you sure you want to show up bare?" Doris bit her lip. "It's just, I don't feel like wearing it today." Esther walked over, held her shoulders. "Look at me, just this once. Do it for you. Do it for how stunning you'll look. Do it for the photos." Doris sighed. "Okay, just a little." "Yes," Esther grinned. She reached for the compact. When Dayor arrived to pick her up, Doris stepped out of the hostel, face glowing, lips shimmering, brows arched. She looked breathtaking. But the moment she opened the car door and stepped in, Dayor's brow furrowed slightly. "You look amazing," he said, then paused. "But something feels off." Doris laughed nervously. "Off? What do you mean?" "I don't know, just a strange feeling. Like something's different about today." She smiled. "Maybe it's nerves." "Maybe." But as they drove, the uneasy feeling in Dayor's chest lingered. It wasn't fear, but a disconnection. He kept stealing glances at her through the rearview mirror, then looked away quickly, like the reflection made his head spin. The house was large, classy, quiet. As they stepped out of the car, the family driver opened the gate and greeted them. Dayor held her hand gently. "You're going to be fine," he said. They walked into the main parlor. Dayor's mother, father, and younger sister sat waiting. Everyone stood to welcome them. But the moment Doris entered, His mother screamed. "Jesu, what is this?" Dior jumped. "Mummy, what's wrong?" His father stood, eyes wide. His sister covered her mouth and backed away. "Why would you bring this into our house?" his mother shouted. "Mummy, stop!" Dior turned to them, confused. "This is Doris, the girl I've been telling you about." "That's not a girl," his sister whispered, trembling. "That's something else." Doris stood frozen. Her eyes darted around, heart pounding. Sir, I'm sorry. I don't understand." His father looked away and began reciting Psalm 91 under his breath. His mother picked up holy oil and flung it at the air around Doris. "You can't see it," she shouted at her son. "Her face, her eyes, look again." Dior turned to Doris, staring deep. To him, she looked like Doris, but the glow was harsh, unnatural, her eyes too shiny, her smile too stiff. "What are they seeing?" he whispered, but Doris couldn't answer. She ran out of the house, tears breaking out in waves. She didn't stop until she was outside the gate. Dior found her sitting at the back of the car, hands shaking, sobbing into her lap. He entered quietly. "I don't understand," he said. "They've never reacted like this. Never." Doris didn't lift her head. "Maybe. I'm cursed," she whispered. "Don't say that. It's not just today. It's been happening. On the road, in class, at church. I thought it was nothing, but..." Dior took her hand. "I don't know what this is, but I believe in the you I know." She looked up at him. "The me you know isn't what everyone else sees." "Then show me." She paused, reached into her bag, took out a pack of wipes. She wiped off the makeup slowly, from her cheeks, her forehead, her lips. When she finished, Dior looked again. He smiled. "There, that's her. That's the one." But deep inside Doris, something felt different. Something was resisting. Something was not happy. And Esther was in the hostel room, watching the time, smiling. Dior drove her back in silence. He parked his car in front of the hostel gate. The ride back had been quiet. Doris had cried the whole way, her fingers clutched tightly in her lap, the fresh shame burning like acid under her skin. When she stepped out, Esther was already standing by the hostel door, pretending to be on her phone. She rushed over immediately. "Babe, what happened? You're crying. What's going on?" Between hiccups, Doris poured it out. How Dior's family screamed when they saw her, how everyone ran from her like she was cursed. Esther wrapped her arms around her tightly, stroking her hair. "People are wicked. They just don't want to see you happy." "Maybe it's me," Doris sobbed. "Stop. You are the most beautiful soul I know. Forget them." Inside her heart, Esther smiled, because she knew. She knew Doris wasn't the problem. It was the makeup. It was the curse that sat like poison on her face, and it was working exactly as planned. A week later, Dior invited Doris to a private dinner at a new lounge in town. It was meant to be a healing date, something soft and reassuring. Esther saw it as an opportunity. As Doris dressed up, Esther pulled out the makeup bag from the top of the wardrobe. "At least look extra fine for him today," Esther urged, pressing the kit into her hands. "But I don't know." Doris hesitated. "Come on, no one is doing charm on you. You're overthinking. You're beautiful." Reluctantly, Doris agreed. She applied the powder lightly across her cheeks. Just a little. Just enough. When Dior arrived, she smiled brightly as she walked toward his car. He opened the door for her, paused, and his entire body jolted backward. "Jesus, what is that?" His eyes widened in horror. He staggered away from the car like he had seen a ghost. Without another word, he jumped into his car, slammed the door, and drove off. Tires screeching. Doris stood frozen, mouth open, heart breaking. Around her, a few bystanders stared. Some whispered. One child burst into tears. That night, Doris didn't sleep. She kept staring at her reflection. When she wiped her face clean with wet wipes and looked again, she looked normal, maybe even beautiful. Why is this happening?" she whispered into the darkness. She thought back to the past, the compliments, the stares, the love, and how they disappeared anytime she wore makeup. Could it be? Could it be the makeup? But no, Esther was her best friend, her own sister from another mother. She would never hurt me, Doris whispered, shutting her eyes tight against the suspicion growing in her chest. Meanwhile, Esther decided it was time to move in. She dressed in her tightest-fitted mini Ankara gown, deep red with gold chains around her neck. She called Dior and pretended to be checking on him. He agreed to see her, but when she arrived at his gate, Dior looked cold. She smiled her best smile. "You deserve better, Dior. Someone who won't bring shame to you." She placed her hand gently on his shoulder, but Dior shrugged it off. "I don't want anyone else." Esther's eyes widened. "Even after what you saw?" "I saw something strange, but it wasn't her." His voice cracked. "I don't know what's happening, but I love Doris, and I will find out." Esther left his house burning with shame and fury. At 6:30 a.m. the next morning, before the hostel stirred, Dior knocked on Doris's window. She opened the curtain bleary-eyed and without makeup. And when he saw her, it was her, the real her. No darkness, no monster, just Doris. Pure, radiant, breathtaking. Dior stood by the door, tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry, I didn't protect you. Something is wrong, and we'll fight it together." She opened the door. They sat side by side on her bed, hands locked, hearts heavy. "Maybe it's something I wore," Doris whispered. "Or something you were given," Dior added quietly. He glanced at the top shelf where the makeup kit sat. He didn't know why, but a cold shiver ran down his back. "Could it be the makeup?" Doris shook her head, immediately defensive. "No! Esther gave it to me. She would never." Dior said nothing, but the seed had been planted. That night, Dior went home and fasted. He prayed until his voice grew hoarse. "God, show me what's wrong, please." And then he slept. In his dream, he was standing in the middle of a giant hall, all white, all empty. A small table stood in the center, and on the table sat the makeup kit. As he walked closer, the walls began to crack. Whispers filled the air, voices chanting in languages he couldn't understand. The makeup bag unzipped itself, and from it, a black mist rose, twisting, turning, forming the face of a woman with hollow, bleeding eyes. She stretched out her hand toward him. On her palm, words appeared. The gift was poisoned. He turned to run but found himself sinking, as if the floor had turned to quicksand. The whispers grew louder. The woman screamed, "Return it, or she will rot." Dior woke with a violent gasp, eyes wide, heart racing. "Jesus!" He picked up his phone. 6:04 a.m. He got dressed, skipped breakfast, and went straight to Pastor Elijah's house. The pastor opened the door, concerned. "Brother Dior, you look shaken." "Sir, I saw something. I need to talk to you, please." They sat down. Dior explained everything. The love, the makeup, the moments of horror, the way she looked without it, the dream, the makeup kit, the whispers. Pastor Elijah listened silently, then nodded slowly. "You must take me to her, now." Doris had just woken up. She hadn't dressed, no makeup, nothing. Dior called her. "Babe, I'm outside. Please open the door. I came with someone." She opened it. Pastor Elijah stepped in. He walked slowly to the middle of the room, stopped. His eyes locked on the makeup kit sitting on the dressing table. He didn't touch it. He only whispered. "This is not ordinary." He turned. "Where did this come from?" Doris stuttered. It was a gift from my friend, Esther." Esther, who was standing by the wardrobe, went pale. The pastor looked at her. "Did you give her this?" She nodded slowly. "Why?" Silence. He took one step closer. "Esther, I said, why?" Esther's hands began to tremble. Her lips quivered. Because she always stole the light. Everyone loved her. No one saw me. Even when I dressed, powdered, painted, no one looked. Tears welled in Doris' eyes. "You did this to me?" Esther collapsed on her knees, crying. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted her to stop being so admired." The pastor raised his hand. "We end this now. He opened his Bible, lifted oil, began to pray. The makeup kit began to tremble. The mirror cracked. The powder case popped open. The lipstick oozed like blood. Pastor Elijah anointed Doris. "Whatever entered her through this, I command you, out!" A sharp wind rushed through the room. Curtains blew. The wardrobe creaked. The makeup kit burst into flames. Esther screamed. The pastor shouted louder. "She is free!" The flames died. The room went still. Doris sat still, tears falling. But this time, they were tears of relief. 3 weeks later, Doris moved out of the hostel. She didn't speak to Esther again. Not in class, not on campus, not at church. She forgave her. But the friendship was dead. She focused on her studies, worshiped, smiled more. And Dior, he never left. They grew stronger, closer, deeper. Until one Sunday evening, Doris returned from class to find a room filled with lights. Her favorite worship song was playing gently. She turned and gasped. Dior stood there dressed in white, smiling, with his family behind him. "Doris," he said, voice trembling, "I saw you barefaced. I saw you cursed, and I saw you set free. I saw your scars, and I loved you still." He knelt. "Please, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Doris' cheeks. She said the only word that mattered. Yes. Applause. Hugs. Tears. Laughter. Esther was not there, and never would be again. Not every gift is a blessing. Some gifts come wrapped in smiles but tied with jealousy. Some friendships carry hidden knives behind their hugs. In life, never be so blinded by trust that you ignore the quiet warnings in your spirit. And above all, beauty that truly shines doesn't come from powders or paints. It comes from a pure heart, and no mirror or monster can ever change that. As Dior and Doris walked away from the ashes of betrayal, a lesson had been carved deep into their hearts and into ours. Be careful who claps when you rise. Be careful who hands you a crown. Because not every admirer is a friend, and not every gift is meant to bless you. Some are traps, some are cages, and some are curses. Here on African Tales by a Maid, we don't just tell stories, we reveal the hidden truths that live among us. If this story touched you, if it made you think deeper about trust, jealousy, and unseen battles, don't leave without subscribing, because the next tale might just be the one that saves you from a mistake you didn't see coming. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and join our growing family of believers in the power of truth, culture, and unforgettable African wisdom. Until next time, remember, some masks are worn on the face, but the real ones are worn in the heart. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed and stay sharp. See you in the next story.